what's that last line? Oh, he's gay. Oh, yeah, see, straight guys don't say that. There's nothing wrong with being gay in any way, but he definitely is.
Really weird moment on Deadpool where he said, let's do one more take. And everyone was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then as the character, he was like horrifically mean to.
Ryan Reynolds might have been the perfect Hollywood figure for a long time, but many celebrities have figured him out for his lousy ego, rudeness, and bullying patterns. And you will be shocked to find out the celebrities who brutally dissed Ryan and the crazy words they used to describe him. Behind the scenes, not everyone is laughing. Over the years, some of the biggest names in Hollywood have spoken out about Ryan's alleged ego, pettiness, and difficult behavior. From co-stars who refused to work with him again to directors who walked away from multi-million-dollar projects because of his control issues, a pattern is emerging that suggests Reynolds may not be the Hollywood nice guy he pretends to be. So, what's the truth? Is Ryan Reynolds a charismatic king of comedy, or is he secretly one of Hollywood's biggest frauds? Let's break it all down. The Jersey Shore snub. Reality stars call out Reynolds' rudeness. When reality TV stars Sammy Sweetheart Giancola and Dina Cortese from Jersey Shore were asked about the rudest celebrity they had ever met, they didn't even hesitate. Without missing a beat, Dina dropped the bombshell. Ryan Reynolds. Now, let's put this in context. These two have partied with some wild celebrities in their time. From the situation causing chaos on the red carpet to full-on bar fights in Seaside Heights, they've seen it all. They've rubbed elbows with the list actors, top-tier musicians, and professional athletes. So, for Ryan Reynolds to stand out as the rudest, that's saying something. When pressed for details, Dina hesitated, clearly trying not to burn bridges. She awkwardly said, "He was just not great to us." Meanwhile, Sammy jumped in, trying to do damage control, saying, "Maybe he was just having a bad day." But here's the thing, celebrities with bad days don't usually get called out years later on national TV. If Ryan had just been indifferent or distracted, they probably wouldn't have even remembered the encounter. But the fact that his behavior left such a lasting impression, that's a red flag. And it makes you wonder, how many other celebrities have had similar experiences with Ryan but just haven't spoken up? Rebecca Ferguson's nightmare on set, the co-star who couldn't stand him. Now let's talk about Rebecca Ferguson, one of Hollywood's rising stars and a fan favorite from Mission Impossible and Dune. She's known for her grace, professionalism, and dedication to her roles. But behind the scenes, she's had her fair share of Hollywood horror stories. In an interview, Ferguson recalled working with a top-billed actor who, in her words, was an absolute idiot and completely insecure.
Film with an absolute idiot of a co-star. And this human being was being so insecure and angry because this person couldn't get the scenes out. And I think I was so vulnerable and comfortable that I got screamed at. And I would cry walking off set. This person would literally look at me in front of the whole crew and say, "You call yourself an actor, this is what I have to work with? What is this?" And I stood there just raking this. But because this person was number one on a call sheet, there was no safety net for me. So no one had my back. And I remember the next day I walked on and I said, "You get off my set."
She described how this actor would scream at her on set and no one stepped in to stop it. Ferguson never explicitly named names, but fans quickly put the pieces together. The timeline, the context, and the movie in question all pointed to one culprit, Ryan Reynolds in the sci-fi thriller Life 2017. So what exactly happened between them? Well, according to industry insiders, Ryan was constantly trying to overshadow her on set. He made snide remarks, cut her off in scenes, and even challenged her on minor details. At first, Ferguson brushed it off as method acting, maybe Ryan was just deep in character. But as the days went on, it became clear that it was something else. Allegedly, he was irritated that Ferguson, an actress known for her intense performances, was getting more praise than him in early reviews. This incident not only raised eyebrows but also added to an emerging pattern. Ryan's insecurity and need for control often rub people the wrong way. And he's not just lost co-stars over it, he's lost friends too. The mysterious fallout with Jake Gyllenhaal. Remember when Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal were inseparable? During the press tour for Life, their bromance was all over the place, goofing around in interviews, cracking jokes, and acting like long-lost brothers. Fans were convinced they'd found Hollywood's next great friendship. Then, radio silence. Gyllenhaal went from hyped-up bestie to completely avoiding Ryan in the span of a few months. And when an interviewer asked Jake if he and Ryan were still close, his response was ice cold. "I have nothing to say about him. Likes. So what happened?" Insiders claimed that Ryan's ego got in the way. During the press tour, Ryan was constantly making things about himself, even cutting off Gyllenhaal mid-sentence in interviews. And while Ryan's humor can be charming, it seems like Jake eventually got tired of always playing the sidekick to Reynolds' non-stop showmanship. For someone as respected and serious about his craft as Jake Gyllenhaal, that kind of behavior doesn't fly. TimMiller's explosive accusations, "Was Ryan Reynolds really that cruel?" TimMiller, known for playing Weasel in Deadpool, has never been one to shy away from controversy. But when he spoke about his experience working with Ryan Reynolds, the revelations left fans shocked. In an interview, Miller described a moment on set that changed everything for him. He recalled that while filming Deadpool 2, Ryan, fully in character as Deadpool, suddenly turned on him, but it didn't feel like acting. It was a moment that felt personal, raw, and unnecessarily cruel. According to Miller, Reynolds delivered cutting insults that went far beyond the usual playful banter. It wasn't just Deadpool roasting Weasel in a scripted moment, it felt real. Too real. Miller admitted that while he was used to comedy and sarcasm, this particular exchange was genuinely painful. His exact words, "He was horrifically mean to me. It was genuinely painful. I just don't think he likes me that much." That's a big statement, considering the two had worked together on one of the most successful R-rated superhero films of all time. What made the situation even worse was the power imbalance. Reynolds wasn't just an actor on Deadpool 2 by this point, he was one of the film's producers. That meant he had more creative control, more influence over how things were done, and importantly more power over people like Miller. Miller described the experience as awkward and humiliating, explaining that after that exchange, he felt like he was no longer welcome on set. It was clear that things between them had shifted, and not in a good way. But why did Reynolds suddenly turn on him? Some speculate that Miller's own controversies played a role. Around the time Deadpool 2 was being filmed, TimMiller was dealing with multiple scandals, including allegations of misconduct and a bizarre incident where he was accused of making a fake bomb threat on a train. The latter even led to criminal charges. At the time, Reynolds was at the peak of his career, carefully managing his image. Some insiders believe that he wanted to distance himself from Miller, seeing him as a liability. If that's the case, it raises an important question: was Ryan's treatment of Miller truly about personal dislike, or was it a calculated move to protect his reputation? Miller himself seemed to suggest the latter, stating that Reynolds had changed since becoming more powerful in Hollywood. Once he had more control, he became a different person, he said in an interview. But the final nail in the coffin came when Miller was asked if he'd ever return to the Deadpool franchise. His answer, a resounding no. "I would not work with him again. Not even if they paid me double." Now, think about that. Hollywood actors often deal with difficult co-stars, but very few come out and say they never work with someone again, especially when that someone is the star of a billion-dollar franchise. So, was this just an isolated incident, or is it another example of Ryan Reynolds' behind-the-scenes behavior being very different from his public persona? The Deadpool director who walked away, a power struggle with Ryan Reynolds. If you thought Deadpool was just another superhero movie, think again. The original Deadpool was a passion project, one that almost didn't happen. It took years of persistence, leaked test footage, and an incredible amount of risk to bring it to the big screen. And at the heart of it all, director TimMiller. Miller was the guy who made Deadpool a reality. He fought to get the film greenlit, worked within a tight budget, and helped craft the unique style that fans fell in love with. Naturally, when Deadpool 2 was announced, fans assumed Miller would be back. But then he wasn't. Instead, Miller walked away from the project entirely, citing creative differences with Ryan Reynolds. Now, in Hollywood, creative differences is often a polite way of saying to people couldn't stand working together. But what were those differences, exactly? According to reports, it all came down to one thing. Ryan Reynolds wanted full control. Reynolds had gained significant influence after the success of the first film. Not only was he the star, but he was also a producer, meaning he had a say in nearly every decision from the script to the cast to the overall tone of the sequel. Tim Miller, on the other hand, wanted to expand the scope of Deadpool 2. He had ambitious plans for the sequel, wanting to bring in bigger action sequences, more dramatic moments, and a slightly different tone than the first film. Ryan, however, wasn't on board. He wanted to keep the sequel more in line with the original, focusing on humor, fourth wall breaks, and keeping things simple. At first, it was just small disagreements. But as production moved forward, those disagreements turned into full-blown arguments. And soon, it became clear there was no way both of them could have their vision realized. Eventually, Miller had enough. Instead of continuing the power struggle, he decided to walk away. In an interview, Miller later explained his decision. It became clear that Ryan wanted to be in control of everything. "I can't work that way. If I can't win a creative debate, I don't want to play." The fact that he used the word win is telling. It suggests that every creative discussion became a battle, and when you're fighting with the lead actor, who also happens to be a producer, you're probably not going to win. But here's where things get interesting. After Miller left, Ryan Reynolds and the studio immediately brought in a new director, David Leitch, the co-director of John Wick. Now, Leitch is known for his ability to deliver big action while still keeping a light tone, exactly what Ryan wanted for Deadpool 2. So, while Deadpool 2 went on to be a box office success, it was clear that Ryan Reynolds had become the real power behind the franchise. But was this a one-time incident? Not exactly. This wasn't the first time Ryan had taken over a project. Reports suggest that he had similar behind-the-scenes conflicts on films like Green Lantern and Free Guy, where he had strong creative opinions and often clashed with directors or writers. The Deadpool fallout, however, is the most public example of his growing control issues. And for someone who projects an image of being the laid-back, funny guy, it's starting to seem like he's actually very strategic about maintaining power in Hollywood. So, was Tim Miller just another casualty in Ryan Reynolds' rise to dominance? Or was this just the natural evolution of an actor taking control of his own projects? Either way, one thing is clear: if you work on a movie with Ryan Reynolds, you better be okay with playing by his rules. Ryan Reynolds might play a lovable goofball in public, but behind the scenes, there's a growing pile of evidence suggesting he's controlling, egotistical, and ruthless when it comes to his career. So, is Ryan Reynolds Hollywood's biggest fraud, or just another star with a carefully crafted image? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of Hollywood's biggest stars.